What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. It's another edition of the Powerlifting with the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gags, and we got Nate on the line. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
All right. So yeah, I think we met at one of the underground strength events. And again, for those that aren't familiar, Zach's a good friend, mentor of mine. And again, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for Zach. I'd say it was like 20, maybe 2010. I was at one of the early underground strength certifications. Zach had read one of my articles online at the time, and he kind of planted the seed of like opening up my own gym. And now that we were just talking off air a little bit, two locations later, 20 years in the coaching, 15 years in business, a lot has happened since then. So
Yeah.
lots of memories with the underground. So
How was that certification? How was that? Did you like how involved were you? I know his certifications are tough. I know they're tough. And we're
so
bringing
yeah, so in terms of like the certification, what I liked about Zach's clinic seminars, whatever you want to call them, they're always hands on,
for
and
sure.
actually it's I think that is when it comes to events, I see like there's two types of events that I see. In powerlifting now, especially like a lot of events are maybe just kind of like meet your favorite lifter and maybe you get to like lift in the same gym, maybe whatever. It's kind of like more of a meet and greet. It's not like really like a learning opportunity per se.
Mm.
And then on like the more collegiate side of things, like maybe you go to an S again, and no shade here because I'm actually speaking at the Delaware State Clinic for NSCA. So, but like a lot of those more professional clinics, it's just a PowerPoint a lot of times. It's
Yeah.
usually not very interactive. And
Yeah.
even like when not that I'm the best presenter in the world, but like I have a master's in education. I'm certified teacher, so I know Zach and I have that in common as well. But um, the presentations like need to be interactive. Like you need to engage with the audience. So, anyways, what I loved about Zach is that you were like always like doing the thing. You were
Mm.
always. I was probably like over 300 pounds at the time. I was a super heavyweight power lifter. I was doing the wall walks. I was trying the gymnastics. I was like all the things that I was not like I was, flipping the top, and some of the stuff I
Yeah.
was more the strength stuff I was comfortable with, obviously. Like if we were doing trap bar deadlifts or push press, like that stuff was fine. But I
Yeah.
was also doing the calisthenics and like kind of some of the kettlebell lifting, which I was less comfortable with or less experienced with. But I think it's really important that you learn by doing. Um,
Sure.
and that was something where I really liked how it was, and you could feel like the energy of like the session. You could feel when you were at the underground, and even to this, like it's just when you're in or any hardcore gym, like there's kind of like a feeling in the air, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I saw you just went to Skiba's gym recently, so it's
Yeah.
like
Love
there's a
Skiba. Yeah.
there's a feeling when you like go to a place like that. There's history.
Sure.
There's if you go to Gaglione Strength, it's like man, it's like this is where Larry Wheels came up. This is where what I mean. This is some serious lifting was done. And that was another thing when we were talking off air. Like I wanted to make sure we always had a physical location in New York. It's like, so we have our record board up. We have our nationally ranked lifters all across the wall. Like there's history there, and there's kind of like if it kind of West Side has kind of changed over the years, but like now part of it's like a museum. But like when you see like the record board, when you see like these things,
Yeah.
um, it just gives you it really kind of adds to the environment and gives you a certain type of feeling. So, anyways, this
Yeah.
podcast is not about me; it's more about you. But this is that's kind of like
Yeah.
initial dealings with Zach, and the reason also just a little more context, and then I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. Um, I was training mostly wrestling and football at the time, and Zach was he was training a lot of guys like with Rutgers, for example, or a lot of the all stars in the New Jersey region. So he was essentially doing what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I just felt like why not like learn from someone who's already doing what you want to do. And I was working with a lot of wrestlers. Some started to do really well. Some started to compete at the collegiate level. Some were like winning county and state titles. And I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to like get my name out there, improve myself, continue to separate myself, and even to this day, I still train a handful of wrestlers here and there. We have this kid Devin Downs. He just won I don't know if you're familiar with the Beast of the East tournament.
Yeah.
So he just won the Beast of the East. He's a multiple time state champion.
Wow.
He committed to Maryland for next year. So he does our strength and conditioning program. So like we're still like very much involved. And again, Mark Bell always say strength is never a weakness. Like strong is strong. So if you can, the strength is going to be the foundation of everything that you do. And I know that
Sure.
But anyways, onto your story. That's a little context on how me and Zach kind of connected. Tell us about how you got started lifting and then what you got going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started lifting. I don't actually remember a time in my life where there were not weights involved. My dad would always have me in the garage, and I was lifting with him. It was a really cool story. I'm from Glenville, West Virginia. There's nothing there, but except a little college there. It's called Glenville State College. Now it's called Glenville State University just because they have a master's program. But Brian Siders, multiple
Mm.
time IPF world champ, you know what I'm talking about. Brian Siders went. He played football there, and he trained. He stopped playing football, but he still went to school there. And when he stopped playing football, he started training at the local gym, and it was called To Your Health. And my dad and him started lifting together, and they became great buddies. And Brian used to come up to my house when I was like 3 years old, and like he would be smashing. He would be smashing Big Macs, like 5 Big Macs after a long squat session, and it was awesome. He would eat while he trained and stuff too. But anyway, so from a very young age, I was around like a lot of lifters. My dad, he's got all kinds of. He's a welder and stuff. He was a business owner in oil and gas, but he built all kinds of like cool equipment that we had in the garage, and like our garage is set up. So from a very early age, I was lifting. I started competing around the age of 10. So now I've been competing for 18 years.
Nice.
And it was like, if you go and you look on open powerlifting, a lot of those meets aren't even on there. Like all the NASA meets, like I was talking to you about off air, went to the NASA meets. And then I did a lot of like, when you're younger, like I did a lot of like unsanctioned bench meet here, unsanctioned push pull, stuff like that. And like I count that as competing. I do.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. But from there, I wanted to compete in like a strength based thing, and so I was like, okay, I can throw the shot put, and I became pretty good at throwing the shot put, and then realized that hey, if I want to make it out of Glenville, West Virginia, my vehicle is probably going to be throwing the shot put. It's not going to be playing football because our football team sucks so bad we'll never even get looked at. Like I might make it. I could have been like I probably could have made it to like a local Division 2 school or something, but we just played like the surrounding counties, and like we had like both everybody played both ways. It just wasn't a
Yeah.
conducive environment to become a Division 1 athlete. And so through throwing the shot put, I ended up making it to college, and I was in high school. I was a 4-time state champion in the shot put. I got the single A all-time state record, and my record was just under Randy Barnes's record. He was from West Virginia. Randy Barnes had the world record in the Olympic men's, but I didn't end up becoming like anything close to him. But I ended up going to Southern Illinois University. I was there for about 2 years, and then the Division 1 life, I just kind of lost the fire for my sport. I don't care if that sounds like soft or whatever, but I did, and it happens. It happens. It just became a thing where
One thing I don't want to gloss over and I'll let you continue because I had a really quick because I think it's important for people to hear. So at that point, you were already competing, like just competing for like basically over a decade when you got to college. So that's something, right? So a lot of us, because I know I didn't really start doing any type of organized sports until like seventh to eighth grade. So I was a little bit of like a late bloomer.
mm-hmm.
I started taking training more seriously as a 10th grader. Um, and so I had a really quick story, and I'll let you because I think it's important. So I had this kid Dan Spurgeon that I started training for certain conditioning, and same thing. He started wrestling really young, and he never did any strength training. But anyways, so I worked with him for a year, consistently, and he went from just being kind of a county level wrestler, and he ended up being a state champion. But he advanced so much because he never did any strength training. He went 50-0, and he only was offensively scored upon twice. But then when he got to college, he went to Hofstra. He thought that he did enough, and he thought I was like, oh, I'll start, I'll become all conference.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you're the low man on the totem pole again. So
For sure.
it's something where like there is like kind of a burnout is a thing, and I think also too like if you never like take any time off,
For sure.
and I'm sure we'll maybe talk about like early specialization and stuff. So, anyways, and not to like give you a pass or anything, but I think that it's important where like when you're doing something for that long and you're going hard, like yeah, like the burnout's real, and sometimes, and anyways, and
Sure.
obviously you're still competing in other things. So continue. I just want
Sure.
to kind of
Yeah.
highlight because it's like.
That's real.
Even though you're young, you still like put the miles on the car, so to speak, and I think that is a real thing. And I think that if you're not careful about, um, because I'm sure like at 12 years old you weren't like periodizing, you probably weren't, you know what I mean? Like you would just kind of go, you would just go on like getting
Yeah.
after it, right? So, anyways,
Yeah.
so it continues now. So now you're kind of, I guess, discontinuing track and field, and then what was your
Only at the Division 1 level there. I just discontinued at the Division 1 level, and I moved back home and went to a Division 2 school about 2 hours away from home in West Virginia. But I used to think about like, oh dang, like I lost that opportunity at Division 1. But here's the deal: if I didn't lose that, I would have never experienced what I did in Charleston, West Virginia, when I went to my other D2 school. And what I experienced there was being on a track team with no strength coach. So I went to the local powerlifting gym called the
mm,
Holly Strength Gym. And who do you think's there? Brian Siders.
that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so Brian Siders, 2006 World Strongest Man Phil Pfister,
Wow.
another really great bencher named Alan Beria. He's sponsored by Anderson. He's still sponsored, but he's an older guy now. Alan Beria, great single ply bencher, but and then another the IPA chairman for West Virginia, Chris Jividan. Um,
Okay.
a lot of these guys, we were in the Holly, and the Holly was like 500 square feet. That's it. And so I come into this place, and I start training around these guys on all this homemade old equipment, York stuff. It's homemade racks, 500 square feet, just like the coolest crap you could ever imagine, but it's super small. So it's very intimate. You talking with everybody, you're never going to just be in there on your headphones. You know what I mean? It was a key club gym too. So you could get kicked out, um, and it was like a team. It was the Holly Strength Gym. It went all the way back to the 70s. They used to be a part of this group called the West Virginia Wild Bunch, and they would go up and like they talked about in West Side. Also, a guy named Luke Imes, I think he was around for that as well. This is back in the 70s and 80s, but very cool. But so I was around all those guys, and I just learned so much and learned so much about the culture. I'd already been competing in powerlifting, but I continued on there, and I kind of like powerlifted in the off season, and then did through the shot put during season. And I got really strong and I learned a whole lot. But then from there, I went on to this is like another amazing experience. Got to get I got to throw for my master's degree at Ashland University under the coach Judd Logan. And Judd Logan was a 4-time Olympian in the hammer throw. He coached over 400, not exactly sure, but over 400 All Americans in 20 years and 87 national champions. 87 national champions in like 20, 25 years, I think. His name is Judd Logan. He's amazing, but he ended up passing away. And while I was there in my last year, but all of these reason why I say all these things because all these things layered on top of the last one, like my time figuring things out in high school, learning, like being from Glenville, West Virginia, not having a coach, becoming a state champion by myself, that definitely fuels into the type of coach that I am today. I had to dig deep. I didn't really have somebody to tell me. I learned off YouTube and then reading books. And then when I went to college, I got to experience the very, very high level Division 1. Where there was Olympians on the team. Like Deanna Price, amazing hammer thrower, Olympian. And then I went to the Division 2 level, being around Judd Logan, and then coaching there. And then now I'm with Zach. So my goal in saying this is that I'm just trying to keep layering these things, and turning. I want to become. It's all for a purpose.
I want to I do want to fast forward to like how you met Zach and all that, but before that, just kind of selfishly, I'm curious like if there was anything that you learned from Brian in particular, because I think that I don't know, was he like a 2,600 pound total guy, something like in that?
2651 single ply.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
up there.
yeah.
So what kind of, I'm just curious like what the training was like, when like in terms of like maybe the exercise selection, the frequency, and I know you kind of mentioned it kind of felt like a team. So just maybe like, walk us through maybe like, I don't know, maybe like what a week of training might look like with them. I'm just kind of curious, because I'm
Yeah.
familiar with him as an athlete, but I'm not really familiar with his training style. I think it'd be interesting for people to.
Yeah, for sure. So I can, first off, when we get off here, I'll send you some pictures of his old training logs. His training logs are
Sure,
insane.
very cool.
But he let me just say this, preface this. Brian trained with nobody, but Brian trained in there,
Right.
at the same time. Brian trained by himself. He really, he was not, you just couldn't train with Brian. When I send you those training logs, you're going to see, like, I'm talking, the guy would have like 5 hour long
Yeah,
workouts.
I could. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he would do like 10 different, like, compound, like, realistically 5 to 6 different heavy compound exercises in one workout. But
Yes.
he'd be like, work up to a top set of 5 on a high bar back squat, then work up to a top set of 3 with a high bar and a pause, then do work up to a top set of 6 with a camber bar good morning, and then hit a 5 sets of 5 with like 60% on a stiff leg deadlift. It's ridiculous, but look at, it's crazy. It's crazy. He would do that, and then he trained 6 days a week. You do upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, and every time he would train upper, he would bench, and every time he would train lower, he would squat and deadlift and probably good morning. I've never seen anybody do that kind of volume and be that strong. Sometimes you might see like a little weak kid.
A smaller
Yeah,
weight class.
yeah.
You don't see that for super heavyweight.
No, you don't see that for super heavyweight. But I think, Brian got really, he was extremely good. But, by the time he's 32, he's done,
Well,
and
yeah. So that's why I want to maybe we could yeah. I want so one thing I definitely want to highlight, and I'm curious like your take. I know Zach's very adamant about like the early specialization of sports, and I'm starting to see this like trend in powerlifting. And anyways, my this is just my like observation and my theory. I'm what I kind of right now like the high frequency, and maybe to a degree it's starting to depend on swinging, but generally as far as in the popular kind of tested
yeah, no
side of
sorry.
things, high frequency, high specificity, and even to the point where like you kind of mentioned like SBD like 6 times a week. That's like a thing. Um, but you're also seeing a lot of like kids breaking their forearm. You're starting to see like weird overuse injuries in powerlifting, like the kind of the sub junior and junior division,
Mhm.
or you see like some of these guys that are like totaling 1,000 kilos in their early or 900 kilos in their early 20s, which is insane. So um, I guess my question is maybe like what your thoughts are in terms of like you kind of saw that, right? So maybe like is it possible that maybe Brian Siders could have totaled 27 or 28 if he had a longer lifespan, or maybe like with the higher frequency, maybe he just hit his peak sooner.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
These
it's
are just
hard.
like obviously we
Yeah,
can't like you can only
yeah,
speculate, right? But I'm just kind of
yeah,
curious in terms
yeah,
of you kind of saw this like one style of training that obviously extremely successful, like one of the
yeah,
best of all time.
yeah.
How has your own training style shifted over the years? And then maybe we can kind of talk about maybe I guess how you are currently training for powerlifting
Yeah, for sure.
present
I
in the
know
present.
this for sure, that you cannot, for me personally, I can't burn the candle too hot because the wax is going to be gone. Like, the candle's going to run out. Like,
Yeah,
I think like somebody like Brian, like, yes, he got super strong, but longevity wasn't really
wasn't there.
maybe in his mind, or maybe even in the cards for him. I know his dad died at age 41, and like, he just kind of like, Brian is just like, he looks like a Neanderthal. Yeah, like, he just like freaking huge, like big old bony structures, like, like bigger face, bigger head, and he just doesn't, he looks like he'd have a short span, but he is but let me tell you one thing that I know to really be true about the younger population doing like the SPD, and only that is they're not building up the vehicle that is the body. Things are going to break. You're focusing too much. You're missing you're missing the point. You're trading away long-term success for a
Yeah.
short term, like, impulse, like, of, I want to hit this number. And it's like, it's also, to me, just seems like such a lazy way of training, of just only going to bench, only going to squat, only going to deadlift. It's like, and also like, it's boring too, man. I live on accessories. But as my, like, my for my own training, My frequency has dropped as I've gotten stronger. Like my frequency, I used to be able to train, of course, 5, 6 days a week, and then it's 4, and then now it's more like I train 2 heavy days and 2 not so heavy days, and and as I continue to get stronger, of course, you can drive your own work capacity up and
Sure.
how prepared I am for that. But I just find like the sweet spot is train 4 times a week with weights, and 2 of those being heavier, 2 of those being lighter. But I'll tell you one thing about my own training that I've had a ton of success with, especially with my lower body work, my squat and deadlift, is I do train concurrently, but I train with like an additional day, not just a speed day and a max effort day, but have a volume day in as well. So my micro cycle, my week is 10 days long rather than 7. And so like I'll do like volume, dynamic, max effort, volume, dynamic, max effort, volume, dynamic, max effort. So it's 10 days. So 3 microcycles makes a block. That's 30 days. And then I stack 3 of those on top of themselves and make a 90-day training cycle. Works out to be perfect. And what it does is it lets me build the body more because I have the volume day that's dedicated completely to recovering from the heavy day, but also putting on muscle mass. And then I also like I get to be recovered because it's been 10 days since I squatted or deadlifted heavy rather than 7. And that has been a huge thing for me. And that was taught to me by Mike Bartos. Mike Bartos, I got to train with him a good bit for about 2 years. When I was coaching at Ashland University, I would drive up to Youngstown, train with him in the morning in what I called his dungeon of destruction. He's an amazing lifter, and he makes amazing strongman equipment. I really think his stuff will withstand a bomb. It's strong. It's good stuff. It's like pretty much all made by like him and his welder. So like it's a small company. I like to support it. He's giving a lot of great stuff. But Mike is so intelligent. His training is just so well thought out, and it just makes so much sense. And it layers, like one wave layers on the next wave that layers on the next block that layers on the next training cycle, and it's helped keep me injury free. And I'm going to compete, I think, May 16th at that meet in Newark. I think you might be, it's RPS, so you'll be there, right? Yeah, you'll be involved with that, correct? It's like, I think your name was on the email list.
I have to
Are you?
double check my calendar, but it's possible. I think that like I know that is a meet I typically help out with if it's
Mhm.
If it's the Jersey Rumble.
It is,
Um,
yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I would love to. I mean, I've totaled 1830. I totaled eight. So let me see. I squatted 705,
Nice.
benched 408, and deadlifted 705 at 235 in sleeves. And so that was like 1815 or something. But I've hit 1830 in wraps at 275. So I'd really like to. I'm much stronger now, and we're gonna go back to wraps and
Nice.
out of a mono. I'd love to hit 1900. I'd really love to hit that 1900.
Yeah, you squeeze a little bit more out of the wraps, and
I know that I can squat 730 or 740. My bench. I close to 200 kilos, 440, and my deadlift has been really good. I did pull 744
nice.
at the USPA meet, but my hand tore and I got a little bit of downward motion, so I lost it. I didn't lose the bar. They just didn't give it to me for downward motion.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But my training, back to that, is that if I found that if I space it out to that 10-day
Yeah,
microcycle, it's much better.
I think that for a lot of people, it's a good idea. It just takes a little bit more like planning on the front
Yeah,
end in terms
it
of
does. Yes.
I've been kind of working with not quite like a little bridge approach, but I've been kind of experimenting with some of our stronger
Like
people
every other week stuff.
of like kind of like okay, like we're gonna heavy squat this week, dynamic deadlift, dynamics, whatever. But basically, just kind of spreading out, especially the spinally loaded stuff.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
with like benching, you can kind of
I can bench heavy every week. I can bench
you can
heavy
flirt
every
with
Saturday.
heavier loads and higher
Yeah.
intensity more often. I find that with strict curl training as well, it can go fairly heavy. It's not now again when you get to the point if you're like a 500 or 600 pound bencher,
Yeah. 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 Different.
you start kind of running into similar problems. But again, most people don't have that problem at least at least initially and for quite some time. But yeah, if you start to even like five, six, 700 pounds. When you start to be like a 700 pound squatter, I know like for myself, when I'm training in my equipment, if I'm like, like a light day might be, a 700 pound squat for me.
Yeah,
So it's like, it's the absolute load matters, for sure. And
for sure.
when you start getting that spinal compression, you definitely need to be careful. And then also, so anyways, I wanted to kind of roll back to, um, I want to definitely talk more about the training, and then like kind of like I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of like building your foundation. You kind of, so one of the terms that I'll use a lot is like, working the hardware versus like the software, right? So I think a lot of people really get dialed in like neurologically. They're like technically focused. They're really specific about building like their skills, but maybe they have no muscle mass. Maybe they have no just general capacity for like anything outside of the big three. So like I know you kind of said that you really live on your accessory. So what kind of like general training are you doing, and then what have you found to be like the most valuable in terms of I guess your own over the last several years in terms of building up your body? Maybe it's building weak points, whatever it is. But as far as like outside of like the competition squat, bench, and deadlift, what are some like movements and I guess training protocols that you found to be beneficial for yourself?
Dude, I tell you, if I was gonna like pick one, I'm not gonna just pick one, but if I was just gonna pick one, it would be weighted carries. Heavy carries have built my body for sure, and not just my lower body and like stuff like my deadlift from farmers carries, but also my bench. Man, like overhead carries, especially like for repeated efforts of like sets of 10, maybe like 15 yards, 10 sets. Um, Really built my lockout. It also taught me and has taught many of my powerlifting clients how to use their lats, because you can really learn in that overhead position how to like prop yourself up with your lats and like really use them like to like support your shoulder girdle. And that's been a big thing for me. A lot of carries, and of course like suitcase carries, yokes, stuff like that. Also, I do a ton of swings. You talked about how like I do like more a little more athletic type of stuff. I do a ton of swings. I do banded swings. I do regular swings. I do single arm swings. I do double arm swings. I really love the swing. I love the kettlebell snatch as well. I like that, but I really love heavy swings, like 150 pounds, 200 pounds, and doing like sets of 10, 15, 20, and doing repeated effort. And I would do that on my dynamic effort day, most of the time in place of deadlifts. Most of the time, I will do speed squats, and then instead of doing speed deadlifts, because I'm probably going to squat and deadlift in a couple days from now, I'm going to do a swing instead.
You have my wheels turning. So the first person I really saw to be like a proponent of kettlebell training, at least for me personally, I'm sure there was others. We had Donnie Thompson come up to our
For
gym
sure.
several times, and
Also, Andy Bolton was a really big
Andy
proponent.
Bolton. I never got to had a chance to meet Andy personally. So Donnie was someone that we've had several times come up to New York, and grateful to learn from him. Like even like he showed us. I think we might have been there with the first body tempering seminar. It's like a whole other thing. But anyways, the voodoo floss, the body tempering. But anyways, one of the things that was very interesting to me was seeing a big man like him that could move. So we did. He liked to squat into straps
Yeah,
versus
yeah, in the chain.
being
Yeah,
in
I
the
got you. Yeah.
box. So we did a workout with him. I don't know if it was a safety bar or it might have been a safety bar. But anyway, so we did like squats against some chains, and then we would basically do like a superset with I think either kettlebell swings or kettlebell snatches.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very and
Yeah, I
then
love it.
the other thing that Donnie would say, he's like, Gags, he's like, West, we do sets of three because it's one more than West Side or something like.
That's really funny.
You just always say, but again, it's one of those things where if you understand the principles, then you can kind of like, so like the kettlebell, what is it's a violent explosive hip extension, so that's going to
Yeah.
be super helpful. Um, and then the other thing is too, like just the mindset of like you said, like even with Brian Siders and stuff. Okay, like I'm just going to do like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do a little bit extra to like kind of get like a one up on my opponent? And I think also that like that mental side of things
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of these young. If you're a power lifter that doesn't have like a sport background, I think a lot of times you don't have like this, I guess, mental skill set that like maybe like a field athlete, or I call like, real sports, if you were wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
football, whatever. So I don't know if that's something maybe you kind of see also with the younger people. Like we talked about some of the physical qualities, but in terms of like the mindset, it takes to excel and be successful in these sports? Like, is there anything that you've done personally, or things that you've learned over the years, or things that you try to teach your kids in terms of like having the right attitude, bringing the right
Yes,
attitude to your training?
for sure. And I tell you what, this is you gain confidence through experience. And so I talk about I don't really get nervous a lot of times in a negative way before I compete because I've competed literally thousands of times,
Right.
like be through track and stuff. And so I think it's good to always be competing. Matt Wiedemer talked about it at the Underground Strength Con. You just compete, and like it's good for everything. That's great for everything. But let me tell you one thing you sparked me about Donnie Thompson. I really love that. You know that nobody gives a damn about your squat program.
Yeah.
That's 5 weeks rotation with a 5 different. It's basically, I mean, it's just conjugate in a way. He just explained Westside in a little different way. You know what I mean? Um, but basically only having 5 variations and rotating between them and doing the 5x2 and then the couple singles at the end if you earn them is what he said. Or if you, he's like, it's like, what's he say? He said it's like the 5x2 is like going out and getting a little frisky with your honey, and then three by one is if we're gonna take it all the way. Like, he's so funny, but he is. But getting that volume work in, I've had a ton of success with that exact model. Like, and I would do it with Mike Bartos. We'd have 5. But I would also work deadlifts in there too. Like Donnie didn't really ever deadlift in training. You know, might not have to deadlift, but guess what? I love the deadlift, so I'm going to deadlift. I love it. So I trained it with Elite FTS squad there for a little while when I was in Ohio. I would go down. I went down for probably like 3 months and train at with Dave Tate and those guys, and they didn't like the deadlift. And they were like, "You don't ever deadlift. Don't ever deadlift." So it's like, listen, I like to deadlift. Let me deadlift. At the end of the day, I'm lifting weights because I like to lift
Yeah,
weights.
sure.
You know what I mean. But that nobody gives a damn about your squat training. That's a great article. It's funny and it's also just good training info. Great squat model. But yeah, to get back to that, you gotta mentality is like everybody's scared the first time. So how do you fix that? Put yourself in environments that challenge you. So we see this all the time with kids. They're like, oh, no, no, no. I want to do my own program. You know what that is? That's just a different way of saying that you're scared. You're scared, or you're too, you feel like you're too entitled to do
Yeah.
this other thing. You feel like that you're special. Guess what? You're not special. And that's a good thing that you're not special. Come and, work out with everybody else. But it's like, you got to put yourself in those situations. Come to the gym. Go to that training crew. Go train at a place like when I would go to Mike Bartos's house as like a gut check. You know what I mean? I would almost like I knew it was coming up. I knew I was going to go there, and I was going to like compete. We were going to train, but it was like competing. And those things they stack, they layer, and they make you confident. Confidence is like it's funny. Like I'm in grappling. John Danaher is like there is no just. He talks about confidence in sport. He's like sports psychology is really funny because like you're not really going to talk yourself into being confident. You've got to go do it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that I think earlier in your career, like competing more frequently, I agree. And also like depending on the type of training you do, but you kind of mentioned like whether it's more of like a spread out protocol that you do or like your traditional like West Side template where you're having those 2 heavy days and you're really you're trying to strain, but also like we'd all be lying if you're not trying to, one up your buddy
Yeah.
in your,
Yeah.
and I think that, and then if you are with somebody who's a lot stronger, or let's say like for me, like a lot of times, over the years, like I was always one of like if not the top squatter, one of the top squatters. So like I would also try to like if I was like 100 pounds ahead of someone, I would try to like, kind of keep that gap or like improve that gap. Whereas my training partner might try to like can I like get closer? Like, so that could be
Yeah.
a way of winning in a sense, even though like I
Yeah.
lift
For
more.
sure. I
It's
know
still like
exactly what you mean.
it's a mental, and maybe on like a deadlift. Like one of my old coaches, like he was a better deadlifter than me, so if I could try to,
Yeah.
close the gap on that.
Yeah.
So
Or
I
like,
think that
yeah,
there's,
trying to get within a quarter of them or something, Yeah.
yeah, so I think that there's different ways you can kind of compete against yourself and among others. I think that, yeah, the more competing is a skill. And that's where like also too, like a lot of times, sometimes, you know, if you're always leaving your best lifts in the gym, you have to kind of ask yourself, like, okay, like, is it the training program? Do you have some sort of performance anxiety, or, are you just not maybe taking the best attempts? There's a lot of things that go into it, but I think
Yeah,
that the mental side often gets overlooked with some of the younger lifters for sure. So I want to kind of shift gears because we kind of glossed over like kind of how you met Zach, how
Mhm.
that relationship started, and then like basically I want to start to talk about like the training at the underground. I think is very unique, and I think it's very special. Like obviously I'm a little biased, but so how did you guys link up, and then what I guess how did you end up like working there? And because I want to kind of like get into like I guess
Yeah,
what your roles are and like what you do on like a day-to-day basis there.
for sure. Yeah, I was strength coaching at I was one of the strength and conditioning coaches at Ashland University in Ohio, and we went down to Summer Strong. And it's funny, we were just you're going in and out of the presentations, and we were all walking back into one of the presentations. I look over and I see everybody walking in, and then there's two other guys sitting over there at the table by themselves, Zach and Ed Costner. And it was kind of like the Matrix, dude. It was like red pill or blue pill. It's like, which one am I going to take? It's like, and so I took the red pill. I walked over and just sat down. I was like, hey, you mind if I just, it's like I was a young, really like young new strength coach. It's kind of like nerve wracking. Like Ed Cosner is a like master level strength coach, and then Zach Evanesh is amazing. He's the man. I've been modeling my training after him for like 10 years before that or more, and I was like, "Can I just sit down?" And then it exploded from there. Instead of me listening to them, they just talked to me like the whole time. They're you know how they are. I mean, that's the same way that you would be too. Like you just always coaching. Always coaching. Doesn't matter if it's about life or training or anything. You're always coaching. But anyways, from there developed. That was like our first encounter, and then from there we kind of like talked online for a while, and then one of like his head coaching position came up, and so it was the first time he was going to have a head coach, not an assembly of like part-time coaches
Right.
that all were just pieced together. He's going to have a head guy, and so I contacted him on a Monday, and I was like, hey, like, I want this job. Like, I'll drive out there right now. And it was like a 10-hour drive. And he was like, brother, if you drive out here, I'm 90% on hiring you. Cause I mean, it's like skin in the game, he's like, I proved that I really wanted it. And so I drove out there like on a Wednesday and shook his hand, and then I had the job. So, it was the best thing ever. Like working for Zach is amazing. So my role here is I'm considered the head strength and conditioning coach for the underground strength gym. And I take care of pretty much all of the athlete training. Now we do have an assistant coach, Matt, who he does the Saturday morning athlete groups. But then Matt also coaches the morning early adult crews, and then I coach the later morning adult crews. So I'm mostly with the athletes, but I do also have the adults. But at the end, I'm kind of like the overall head. I'm the full time guy. The other guys are part time.
And then for those that aren't familiar, like with like the training style and like how you like model the workouts, can you just maybe give like a little, so I guess a bird's eye view of
Yeah,
looks like?
absolutely. So I'll just give you a great layout of what we do. So when we come in, when the athletes come in, they've got about 8 to 10 minutes or so to do basically like what you might think of as like a wedding warm up. Okay, but it's like a little bit more extended. So like they are going to do like a sled, then back extension, then recline row. Then they might do 2 rounds of that. Then they might go do a kettlebell clean, like five on one side, five on the other, 5 squats, then 5 push-ups. And so it's basically, and then they'll probably do like another thing too, like a lunge ISO, maybe some jump rope, something. And it's kind of like a three-phase circuit that you go through, and it's basically like body pump work. So what's that going to do? Not only does that wake you up and get you warmed up, but think about day in and day out. We rotate that, but day in and day out, coming to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week, how much extra volume that
Yeah.
these athletes could get in a time of their life when extra volume is awesome for them, so they need that extra volume. And so it serves a lot of purposes. And also it also serves the purpose of it gives us 10 minutes for other kids to come in that are late and they're not behind, so that also it serves that purpose as well. But then from there we do what we call our movement prep, and that movement prep is so crucial, and I think it's a big thing that sets us in a different category than other places. And that is, we do, doesn't matter the athlete that we have, what during our movement prep where we are sprinting, jumping, but we're doing like a lot of crawling, gymnastics, gymnastics based things. Like yesterday, I had, doesn't matter your sport. We were doing handstand holds, so partner handstand. I'm facing off with you, and then I'm gonna go down, hit a handstand. You're gonna catch my legs, hold for a 2 count, throw it back down. We're gonna alternate. I go 5, you go 5. Then when we're done, we do something to like for the back side of the shoulder, like a face pull. And so that during that 10 minutes, we are prepping for the session to come. And then we're also have like a training aspect to it. So like Monday, we most time we were going to squat. So during that movement prep, I might do like things that would warm them up for the squat, but then also we're going to train. We're going to have a training thing in there, and that's going to be probably acceleration work. That's a Monday thing. Pairs great with the squat. So you got 10 minutes of like our winning warm up kind of thing. Then we have our movement prep, which is like our really athletic stuff. And then we'll go into our lifting. And our lifting the main bulk of our lifting will probably take another 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And that's going to look so if it's a squat, it's going to be like a squat and then a jump. They're going to be paired together. So squat, jump. Or if it's bench, med ball throw, or bench, plyo push.
Let me just like ask you before, because I appreciate all like the thoroughness. So like when you're doing the kind of like that contrast type stuff, is that like, are you always having some element of power, or is that like for I'm just, or like do you, I guess, would you ever do like a just like the strength movement by itself, or are you almost like always pairing it with like something else just because of time? Or
Yeah, because of time. Because of time. Yeah,
yeah,
and
they have so much time to
also,
work with them. Yeah.
yeah, so much time to work with them, and also, yeah, well, that's just the biggest thing. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It just keeps them rolling too. It
I think
limits
that's I
the
think that's
amount.
I think that's I think that's good for athletes. And I know like because we
Yeah,
both train a lot of wrestlers too, where sometimes it's like, you know,
they don't know how to
if
rest.
you try to train them like a power lifter, it's like they can't. So like
Yeah,
giving them like something to do, even if it's, so yeah, whether it's the
yeah,
contrast method, or even if it's just like, hey, like you're gonna, I don't know if you
yeah,
ever did like, or if you ever do like, I have not done this approach that much. I know like Cressy and Gentle Core and stuff like that, they might do like they would call like maybe a mobility or something
yeah,
like
yeah.
between,
We
but
don't do that really, unless you might be hurt
if
or if
someone's banged up. But yeah, but no, I think that like anyways, but yeah, so you have this main movement, and maybe you're doing some power stuff in
yeah,
between,
or it could be like antagonist exercise. So
or
like
like a
like
push and a
a
pull or
yeah,
something like that.
bench row, or you know what I mean. So like bench row or bench pull apart, bench face pull, or like yeah. Um, but most time if it's like a squat, it'd be paired with like a power
Really
exercise, like
explosive.
squat or deadlift be power. And then our second phase, or like our part two, our 2A and 2B, would just be like accessory work that would go along with the part one. And then we'd finish with a brief Metcon. Now we call it a Metcon, but it's not always a Metcon.
Right.
A lot of times it's just a finisher at the end. It could be Metcon though. It could be sled, bike, rope, burpee, or something like that, and it's like 4 rounds and go. Or it could be farmer's carry, curls, tricep push downs, and grip. You know what I mean? Like so we're going to fill the gaps that the other part of the training did not get to, and we're going to support the training session with that Metcon. It could be conditioning, or it could be bodybuilding work. It could be a lot of core training, like, or not core training, trunk training, we say that. Back extension, suitcase carry, plank, hanging leg raise, stuff like that. And so that's a pretty much just, but like, so Monday is going to be a lot of times our lower body strength day and acceleration work. Tuesday is going to be our upper body strength day with lateral speed work. And then Wednesday is our speed and power only day. And then we also throw in a lot of kettlebells and body weight, like calisthenic work. It would flip flop because we normally do our really athletic work in our movement prep. And so on that athletic day, we might do more weights in the movement prep. So we might start with a power circuit or a little bodybuilding work, and then we go into our power and speed work for the rest of the day. So that's going to be like sprint, jump, throw, just basic stuff like that. Game stuff like tag based games or relay based games, stuff like that. And that's a newer thing for me. I did work with some of that with football stuff, but I'm working with a younger population now, so I have to consider a lot more of how do I make this fun rather than just effective. How do I get them to buy in?
Yeah.
And rather than just effective. With a college athlete, it's just got to be effective. If they don't like it, guess what? They got to come back tomorrow. You know.
Right. Well, I think you made a good point. Like even for yourself, like it's like your preferences do matter. Like you said, like, well, even if like I don't have to deadlift, like, well, what if I like to deadlift? What if and can we work some of that stuff in? Yeah, I do think that so a couple things I want to highlight from a camaraderie, a teamwork standpoint. So in powerlifting, at least the way we train for like raw with wraps and equipped lifters, like if you like are squatting in the monolith, for example, like it requires multiple people to be like engaged and focused at the same time. I know with a lot of the stuff that I learned from Zach originally with some of like the calisthenics and gymnastic stuff, not the wall walks, the partner like wheelbarrow walks and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that. And like, I think that stuff is great because it's like, you don't have to train with a partner, but like it forces them to like learn to like work together.
yeah,
I think that is like so important. It's such like, nowadays, like I feel like everyone, they don't talk on the phone. They don't so like I think that's like a really important like just like life skill, just like learning to just train together with other people. So like physically like using each other's bodies and stuff for like part of the training, I
yeah.
think is great.
Fireman's carries.
And yeah, and then like one thing I also think like in terms of like you kind of mentioned the winning warm-ups and stuff in these, like yes, it serves as a warm-up, but also like for a lot of powerlifters sometimes, especially like maybe it's early off season, maybe you don't have a meet for a while, like if you as you get stronger, a lot of times after your main movement, like you're like kind of like after
Yeah,
you squat 800 pounds or something like that, pull 700 pounds, like a lot of times it's like you have this, it's like, and then like
yeah,
so putting some work on the front end,
yeah,
it's such like a great like tool, especially as you get more advanced, where it's like okay, like you knock some stuff out because otherwise, like what's like you mentioned trunk training, upper back work. A lot of times that stuff will kind of get glossed over or skipped after like a real like hard like
yeah,
lower body lift. So those are just some good takeaways. And then so my next kind of follow up question, and we'll start to kind of close out in terms of like working with athletes, being like a thrower yourself. What are some things that you feel like lifters can, I guess, utilize, or like what are some take home points that maybe like, okay, well, this is some of the things I've learned with my athletic training that I think could be of value to, if like maybe you don't have any aspirations of being like a quote unquote athlete, but you just want to be a better lifter. What are some things that like we can take for the
yeah,
listeners?
definitely. Definitely, I think jumping is huge. Jumping is huge. I don't think enough people jump. Now, you got to go about it as smart. You got to go about it smart. Here's a couple ways that you could go about it smart. If you want to do a broad jump, don't do a broad jump. Do a band resisted broad jump. It's going to put a limit on how far you can go. You're not going to get as high up off the ground. You're going to land with a lot less impact. You want to do a jump that's in a vertical sense, do a squat jump on the ground or do a box jump. Don't, in step down, you know what I mean? And start with 10 jumps a week. If you're a 300-pound guy, 10 jumps a week is good when you first start, you know? I classically always I'll take a little bit of a break from jumping, then come back too hot all the time and always get like an Achilles thing. I always do. And I know it's coming, but I can never, I like to jump. I had the athletic, I was a shot putter. So that power stuff right kind of gets me fired up. So jumping, big thing. Swings, that's not necessarily just like an athletic thing, but I don't think enough people are doing swings, swings. And then probably the biggest thing is that you should periodize your diet. You should periodize your diet when you're especially a bigger guy.
Yeah.
There should be times of the year where you say, I'm going to make myself more insulin sensitive. I'm going to lose a little bit of body fat. I'm going to get a little leaner. I'm going to make it feel good on my joints. I just feel like this has been so big for my own longevity that I get big. I do, but I'm only big for a little while and then I come back down. And I don't compete super frequently in powerlifting. And if you did, you'd have to stay heavier longer. But I just think too
Yeah.
many guys just stay in permabulk, and now carbs don't even work for them. Carbs are a freaking great tool if you know how to use them and you're sensitive to them. You know.
I want to highlight two things about the diet, and then I want to go back to the swings. So, like, for a little bit for me, and I don't know if you ever like fell into this trap or not. So, anyways, when I started learning more about like bodybuilding training, for example, so like a lot of the kettlebell stuff, anyway. So, like, you see this sometimes with like if people are like, let's say a bodybuilding guy is analyzing sled work or they're analyzing kettlebell swings, where it's like exercises where like you're purposely using a lot of momentum, or maybe there's like no eccentric or whatever. So sometimes like it's out there, depending on who you have to be careful of, like where you're getting your information from and in what context, I guess. So like it may make sense on the surface. Well, if you're using a lot of momentum, is that the best for hypertrophy, and is the muscle under tension and all these things? But one of the things that I'm kind of learning too, like with swings, for example, you kind of mentioned like weighted carries and overhead carries, where like you're getting traction on the shoulder, your timing, of your explosiveness. You are
You're also transferring
you're
transferring energy from
you're
your feet up through your
yes.
body. Yeah.
So there's all these other skills that you're kind of getting, and in terms of like things like jumping and stuff like that, where like sure you could do a dynamic deadlift, sure you could do a dynamic squat, but like something like if you're like jumping like onto a box, or if you're snatching a kettlebell, like it forces you to produce a certain amount of force in order to like do the movement. And I think that like a lot of those, and as what we're kind of learning now is that like, this may be linked to muscle mass and other things, but like power is something that we lose quite frequently when as we age. So a lot of times, if we're not like pursuing athletic endeavors, we're not sprinting, we're not jumping anymore. Something like a kettlebell swing, I think, and things of that nature, where it's still, relatively like low skill,
Mhm.
can be a great tool for like kind of harnessing that power and at least maintaining what you have. And the diet, I think, is a big one, because I know even with myself, like some of my best meet performances were like after my bodybuilding show in 2020, where I got like super lean, and then I was able to like eat up into my weight class, and I felt like I was a superman, and like
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just some of my best performances. I think it's one of those things where going back to what you were saying before about your own program training, it takes a little bit more planning, and you can't like maybe compete as often. But I do agree that I think that you can, if you are a little bit more disciplined and you say, okay, like maybe 6 months of the year, a little bit more health focused, a little bit more, and they don't have to be consecutive, but like half the year is going to be more of kind of building health, whatever, and then the other half maybe is more competitive, and you want to be a little bit bigger. So I think like
Yeah.
having like I say, like seasons of lifting and seasons of eating, and kind of having those things kind of coincide. If you're trying to go for maximal strength, you're going to eat and train a certain way. If you're trying to be like a little bit more healthy, maybe you want to lean out, maybe you want to be a little more athletic.
Yeah.
So I think those are really great points, and I think that the diet in particular, I feel like gets overlooked a lot in powerlifting. I mean, it's definitely gotten better, but yeah, I think in terms of like sometimes like having like health phases, or phases where you're purposely kind of getting smaller. Maybe not everyone needs to worry about that if there's someone's like super skinny, whatever. But for most people, like I know for myself,
I'm talking about bigger guys. Yeah. I'm talking about like guys in the 275 and up class, you know. Um,
absolutely,
but yeah, if you're under 200 pounds, keep getting bigger, brother.
you're not. Yeah, yeah. That's a good rule of thumb. Hopefully, that'll get clipped.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, this has been great. I do have another appointment I have to get to, but I'm glad that we were able to kind of schedule this, and I'm looking forward to just connecting with you more in the future. I'm sure I always try to make a trip to the underground at least, once or twice a year. I am going to be at a different event when you guys have your next event, but hopefully I'll definitely catch the next one, and I hope that it goes well.
I'm
Where
gonna
could
put a deadlift seminar on just on the 21st of February. So
21st of February?
yeah, I'm just gonna put a deadlift seminar on. I
Yeah,
haven't
let me
started
know
marketing it
if I could make it down. I think that that's a Saturday.
yet.
I think I could make. I think I could. Convince the wife to let me play in New Jersey for a Saturday.
Yeah.
We got so much going on this year, but no, I do like to support when I can, and I do think also if you guys are listening to this, um, do stuff in person, man. Learn in real life, like you said. Like you drove 10 hours for a job interview. Like a lot of people like don't like kind of take those kind of risks. But I do think it's really important. Again, kind of preaching to the choir here, but where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, if they want to learn more about the underground?
Instagram, it's Nate_Stout1. You could also find me on Train Heroic and YouTube as well.
Nice. I did see like you had a cool tour of Skiba's gym, and then hopefully, I'm just saying if you ever want to tour, some of the the Gaglione strength facilities
For
and
sure, dude.
events, that'd be great to have you. So, but definitely give Nate a follow. Definitely give Underground Strength in a follow. And if you're not following, Zach Ivanesh, of course, the original, the OG Underground Strength coach. I appreciate you guys for coming on the show today. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please give it a 5-star review and please share it. Until next time, stay strong, and then we'll see you soon.
Thanks.